So, in today's podcast, we're going to share our 5 favourite lunchbox swaps that can improve not only your kids' health overall, but also support learning while they're at school, which is hugely important.
It is, yeah. Look, a third of what your kids eat in a school day most likely comes from their lunchbox. So it's pretty important for their health and also their well-being, but particularly their ability to learn. And, and them learning also that lunch actually fuels them. It fuels them well. So
Totally.
yeah.
I remember us talking about this years ago, just how when kids don't have protein or they have something that's kind of high in sugar and then they've got to go back into
highly refined carbohydrates.
And they've got to go back into the classroom and
learn.
sit still and try to learn, and how hard that is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tricky.
It's the little things that make a big difference to the nutritional value of their lunchbox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Small little tweaks.
Yeah, I think as humans we quite often tend to think big, like when it comes to improving, certain aspects of our own health or our kids' health. But it's really the small things that make big differences. People, when they think of like tightening up or improving their diet, they think of like eliminating food groups, and it's not really that. For me, I feel like starting with the little things, the 1%ers, they all add up. So the purpose of this podcast is really just to discuss those 1%ers, the really simple, healthy lunchbox swaps that you might like to chip away at, that, over the long term will actually improve your kids' health and their school lunches, and they're just worth bearing in mind anyway. So, as with everything, it's important that you take things slowly. You work with your kids to introduce change. We often talk, don't we, about not sweeping the rug out from underneath your kids and making these massive sweeping changes that just build resentment.
And their resistance.
Yeah, resentment, resistance, exactly.
Avoid that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, communicating with them, talking to them about what you might like to swap out and why, and, working together to find a better alternative rather than just saying, you're not going to eat this, but you're going to eat this instead. It's, a case of, look, this isn't really such a great idea for you to eat because of this reason, this reason, and this reason.
Yes.
These are some alternatives. Which one feels good for you?
Yeah, I think that's so important with kids. When they understand why, they'll hop on board, and it's just so much easier than.
And then they also have that autonomy of choice.
Yes. Yeah. Great point.
So, I always recommend, or we always recommend definitely, that changes are very gradual. It's human nature, isn't it, to resist change?
Yes.
And so slow and steady, I think, really always wins the race when it comes to just changing the foods that our kids are wanting to eat. So I'm going to start with number 1. I said I was going to give you 5. I could go on and on, but we're going to stick and make this short and sweet. The first one is swapping margarine or even spreadable butter. The spreadable butters often do contain vegetable oils for plain old butter. Margarine is made by a really industrialized chemical process. Butter is made by churning cream or milk. So I can find no good reason to consume margarine or softened butters that are full of vegetable oils ever, really. The thing is that the linoleic acid, which is the main fatty acid in vegetable oils, actually accumulate in the fat cells in our kids' bodies as well as in the cell membrane. And this is really detrimental to your kids' long-term health, and they build up. This is something that's quite cumulative. So we know that there's epidemics of things like diabetes and heart disease and obesity and asthma, and these vegetable oils are very inflammatory. And the one common denominator with a lot of these diseases is that there are inflammatory processes at play. So the more you can avoid vegetable oils, the better off your kids are going to be, like their long-term health is going to be.
I'm noticing more and more scientists and dietitians, more and more people are talking about this. How detrimental vegetable oils are.
100%. So some alternatives. If you're dairy-free or your child's dairy-free, mayonnaise is one alternative. A lot of mayonnaises also contain vegetable oil, but there are a few options on the market that don't. Good old hummus is so easy to make yourself. Again, store-bought hummus often does contain vegetable oil, and this is why, look, it's everywhere, and it is impossible to avoid vegetable oil entirely, I think. But in any way that you can with those daily things, like if your child's consuming some form of margarine or it's better to swap it for butter, because it's just something, as I said, small but really significant. Avocado is a beautiful alternative. Things like tahini or cashew cream cheese, I find, is really kind of one of my son's more favourites. He actually hates butter altogether. Oh, wow. So, he loves like a cashew cream cheese would be his alternative. Nut butters like ABC, coconut oil, coconut butter, olive oil obviously is great. But personally, I just, as I said, like that they're dairy-free alternatives to butter. But I personally just have butter in a butter bell, and that's what keeps it soft. You can actually also blend butter with olive oil if you wanted to make your own kind of spreadable butter. The next thing on my list for swapping for lunches is bread. So if your child's having bread every day, it's in your best interest to shop for the best quality bread that you can source. So the average supermarket loaf, unfortunately, often contains, sometimes up to 20 ingredients. Some of the preservatives have been linked to behavioural and learning problems in children. So it's really important to just consider, if bread is being eaten every day, to really do a bit of research and find the best possible option with the least possible preservatives, and ensuring like these preservatives that are specifically linked to behavioural problems aren't part of your kid's lunch. So all that's really required to make bread is 4 ingredients. It's just flour, water, salt, and a rising agent, so either yeast or sourdough. And the less processed a food is, obviously we know it's better. It's better for your kids, and bread is no exception to this rule. And, basically a very basic ingredient list is no kind of lengthy ingredients list is always best. So, look out for your bread just being made of flour, water, salt, sourdough or yeast, maybe some seeds or whole grains in there would be ideal, really.
And then that longer, is it called leavening time?
Yeah, so if you really want to get kind of dive even deeper, yes, sourdough is better because it relies on like a broad spectrum of yeasts, like basically probiotic living organisms, and whereas yeast is usually just like single strain, which can build up in your child's digestive system and kind of upset things quite a lot. In fact, in my experience, often people will come to me and say, bread really upsets my stomach. It's often not the bread so much as it is the yeast. Sometimes it is the bread, but just being exposed to one single strain of yeast that's building up and up and up and up in their gut can be quite distressing for some people. So I personally, would always try and find or prefer a sourdough. But again, it's not always possible for everyone to find straight sourdough breads. Generally, most supermarkets, from the research that I've done, will have a selection of a couple of breads that don't have like lengthy, strange ingredients lists with, heaps of preservatives and stuff. So generally, and look, there are also obviously great bakers that are popping up. But getting back to your original point, with sourdough, the longer it's fermented, generally the gentler it is on the digestive tract. It's much more easily digested and beneficial to gut health, without a doubt. Swapping processed or deli meats for leftover home-cooked meats is another huge tip I would have. Processed and deli meats contain a number of additives and preservatives that are just simply not going to serve your kids well. It's so easy when you're cooking dinner just to cook up extra meat for school lunches. And, if you're cooking one roast chicken, cook a second roast chicken and pull the meat off of it. You can freeze it in portions and then use that to add to school lunches. So that even if I'm cooking even, say, a casserole or something, and I find that I don't have any good quality protein for my kids' lunches, I might, just throw in like a tray of chicken thighs or something like that, and then that becomes the meat for their lunch the next day.
Yeah. We do like roast beef and slice that up and roast lamb. And I know that deli meats are so easy, but they're linking that to so many issues, health issues again, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, they are classed as they have classed them as carcinogens. But beyond that, they're processed. They're heavily processed, and they do contain preservatives that gives them that exceptionally long shelf life. So,
and again, if your kid's trying to sit and learn,
and
they've just had a salami sandwich,
absolutely, and every now and again, if you're eating processed meat, so be it. But I'm really getting to the things that your kids are having in their lunchbox like most days, and trying to find alternatives to that. Even a can of tuna is a better alternative as a convenient source of protein instead of a deli meat or boiled egg, that kind of thing. Next thing is just swapping processed snacks for homemade snacks. Obviously that's easy for me to say because I actually don't mind getting in the kitchen and baking things. But look, I think on my website I've proven to people that putting together really simple snacks with really simple ingredients is easy enough to do. And it doesn't need to be something that you do, every day or anything. It's something that, I really recommend that you bake, I usually would bake once every couple of weeks. And then, it generally takes me no more than kind of 40 to 60 minutes. And then I just fill my freezer with a variety of healthy snacks just to grab and pack from frozen, basically. So don't overcomplicate it. It takes minutes to put together like bliss balls and, little raw slices. It's not that difficult. And there's loads of inspiration on the Well Nourished website for recipes, that's for certain. If baking's not something that you're up for, there are options at the supermarket. Generally, again, looking for things that are additive-free, lowish in sugar. I know the Maver's brand in Australia here aren't too bad. They've got some options. The Table of Plenty, like they do those little rice crackers with the dark chocolate over the top, a pretty low sugar, additive-free snack. But, and from a savoury perspective, there are some, fairly good crackers. I think the Ceres rice crackers are pretty additive-free as well. So there are options, but again, it just takes you looking at ingredients lists and finding those better options and then sticking with them. It's not something that you have to do. Obviously, every time you go to the supermarket, once you've found your brands, and then it makes it easy. Swapping juices and obviously any carbonated or soft drinks for water. Or another thing that we quite often do just to make things a bit more interesting is something like an iced herbal tea, or even fruit juice, like just a little bit of juice in with water, like a fresh, like just half a lime or a lemon or an orange or something in with water is something that my kids really like. And that's quite kind of refreshing. But other than that, is pretty much, as I said, it's pretty much water. Unfortunately, fruit juices, even when they're freshly squeezed with no added sugar, are just very concentrated sources of sugar. And they do impact on your child's blood sugar levels, on their concentration, and can also compromise immune function. So, it is better just to pick other alternatives. That's it. They're my 5 top choices for, as I said, there's always more. I could sit here and talk for ages, but I do want to keep this short and sweet. Kids sometimes are resistant to change. And like we said to start with, discussing change is so important, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. Just getting your kids on board, educating them with the
why.
Understanding
the why.
And the health consequences
and if, and again, targeting what's important to your kids, like if being able to concentrate in school and getting better grades or, earning an award or something like that is something that's important to them, then that's something that you could use, as I said, as an explanation, to say that this not having fruit juice is going to help you to concentrate, so you might get better grades.
Yeah.
It's like linking the outcome with the action, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and even their feeling.
Yeah.
Like they might get in the car afterwards and say, I've got a real headache, and it's like, I wonder if it's because when we have sugar, your blood sugar goes up and then it crashes down. Just kind of giving them an understanding so they make better choices for themselves because they have the knowledge to make those choices.
And like you said, we often talk about planting seeds. Like Jane often talks. I just love this analogy. I'm going to keep coming back to it because I really love it. Because we're not saying these things to get an immediate acceptance, because you're not going to get immediate acceptance on change generally, but you're just, by giving an explanation, you're planting that seed, and the next time they perhaps have that food and they notice something different in their body, they can make that link.
Yes.
And you've just planted that seed of kind of thought, and one day it will grow and it will bloom into action that they're on board with, I suppose.
And where they're joining lots of dots together.
Yeah. Another thing, just one last thing actually, is also with change is, I think sometimes if you can get another kid on board,
definitely,
like a friend,
super helpful.
Yeah, like I had some health conscious friends at school, so we would often, just say to the kids, like, we're going to all everyone's packing a carrot this week. And so they were completely up for the carrot that week, whereas if it was just them with the carrot, they weren't. So they were kind of a bit more like, well, why am I the only one with a carrot? So if you can join up with other health-conscious parents, I think that that's a really great strategy. Using that positive peer reinforcement is really great. So,
and when it's the normal food you eat at home too, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully those 5 tips, something is helpful there for you. We'll be back next week.